I'll never forget the moment I realized my neighbor was about to lose her house over a $12 garden gnome. She was 68 years old. Lived here for 15 years. And our HOA was foreclosing on her $300,000 home because she refused to remove a ceramic gnome from her front yard. I thought it was just a power trip, but when I started digging into why they really wanted her gone, I uncovered something so dark it made my hand shake. They weren't just bullies. They were criminals, running a scheme that had already destroyed 7 families. What I found didn't just save my neighbor's house, it destroyed them completely. Let me take you back to where this started. I moved into Meadowbrook Estates 2 years ago. It looked perfect, clean streets, nice homes, families everywhere. But there was this tension you could feel. People were scared to plant flowers without permission, scared to park in their own driveways. The HOA president was a woman named Carol Winters. She looked like someone's sweet grandma. Cardigans, soft voice, brought cookies to meetings. But her eyes, ice cold. She ran that HOA like a dictatorship. Every meeting, someone was being fined. Someone was under review. And Carol would just smile and say, "We're maintaining property values." I kept my head down, followed the rules. Then I met Mrs. Chun. She lived 3 houses down. Tiny woman, always gardening, always smiling. She'd bring me tomatoes, share recipes, tell me stories about her grandkids. One day, I saw her crying on her front porch. Primero while que dobe, she handed me a letter. The HOA was taking her to court. They were going to foreclose on her house, a house she'd paid off years ago because of multiple violations. A garden gnome, a crack in her driveway, a faded mailbox. The fines, over $15,000. With legal fees, they claimed she owed $28,000. She was on a fixed income. She didn't have that kind of money. "They want my house," she whispered. "I don't know why, but they want me gone." When I looked into her eyes, I saw pure terror. That's when I decided to fight back. I started going to HOA meetings, really paying attention. And I noticed a pattern. Every few months, Carol and the board would target someone. Always elderly. Always vulnerable. They'd pile on violations. Escalate fines, threaten foreclosure, and most people would panic and sell just to escape. In 3 years, 7 families had left this way. I requested the HOA's financial records. It's public information, we're entitled to see it. Carol smiled at me. That cold, dead smile. "We'll get those to you." Weeks passed. Nothing. So I went to the county clerk's office myself, started pulling deed records, foreclosure notices, property transfers, and then I found it. Every single house that had been forced out, they'd all been bought by the same company, Meadowbrook Property Holdings, LLC. I looked up the business registration. The owner, Carol Winters' son. My stomach dropped. This wasn't about property values. This was a scheme. They were targeting vulnerable homeowners, drowning them in illegal fines, forcing them to sell at desperate prices, then buying the houses through a shell company and flipping them for massive profits. I kept digging. Tax records, loan documents. Everything. Meadowbrook Property Holdings had made over $1.2 million from these houses. $1.2 million. Stolen from people like Mrs. Chun. Mrs. Chun's house was worth at least $300,000. If they foreclosed, Carol's son would buy it for maybe $50,000, then sell it for a full price and pocket a $250,000 profit. Over a garden gnome, I drove straight to Mrs. Chun's house, showed her everything. She stared at the documents, tears streaming down her face. What do we do? I didn't have an answer yet, but I knew I wasn't letting them win. I contacted a real estate attorney who specialized in HOA abuse. Showed him everything. He looked at it for 10 minutes before saying, "This is fraud, wire fraud, forgery, conspiracy, elder abuse. This is federal." We had 2 options: sue the HOA or go to the FBI. I chose both. We filed a lawsuit on behalf of Mrs. Chun, and I walked into the FBI field office with a banker's box full of evidence. The agent actually said, "We've been trying to build cases like this. HOA fraud is everywhere, but it's hard to prove." I handed him the box. "There's your case." 3 weeks later, FBI agents showed up at Carol's house, at her son's office, at board members' homes. They seized everything. The neighborhood was in chaos. So I organized a meeting, invited every homeowner, rented a church hall. Over 80 people showed up. I stood there, hands shaking, and told them everything. How Kara and her son had been running a foreclosure scam, how they'd targeted the vulnerable, how they'd stolen millions. The room was silent. Then someone in the back started clapping. Everyone, within seconds, the entire room was on their feet. People were crying, hugging each other, hugging me. Mrs. Chun walked to the front and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "You saved my home." But here's the twist. 2 days later, another board member didn't escort me to my house. He looked destroyed. "I need to tell you something." Carol had been blackmailing him. Years ago, he'd had an affair. Carol found out and threatened to tell his wife unless he helped her. He'd been trapped. Hating himself, he gave me everything. Emails, text messages, recorded phone calls. The FBI's case went from strong to airtight. Last month, Carol Winters and her son were indicted on 47 counts of fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy, and racketeering. Tyree facing 20 years in federal prison, and Mrs. Chun, all charges dropped. Every fine from the past 5 years declared invalid. She still has her house, and that garden gnome is still in her front yard. She added 3 more, actually. Says they're good luck. I think about this a lot. How close we came to losing Mrs. Chun. How many families they'd already destroyed. How easy it would have been to just ignore it. But here's the truth: evil doesn't need monsters. It just needs good people to stay quiet. If something feels wrong, trust that feeling. Dig deeper, because you might be the only person willing to fight. If this story moved you, if it made you angry or gave you hope, then share it. Subscribe. Comment with your own stories of standing up, because we need to hear them. But now she also reminds me every week that I gave her more than her house back. And she reminded me what we're capable of when we refuse to look away. So don't look away.